So in order to learn about programming, we need to learn a new language. This will be a way to describe what we want the computer to do in a much more precise way than what we could do in a natural language like English. And it's a way to describe programs that the Python interpreter can run. One of the best ways to learn a programming language is to try things. So for example, we can try print 1 plus 1 plus, and if we hit enter, we'll get an error. In English, someone could probably guess that the value would be 2. The reason why we get an error is that this is not part of the Python language. The Python interpreter only knows how to evaluate code that's part of the Python language. If we try to evaluate something that's not part of the Python language, it will give you an error. Errors look a bit scary the way they print out, but there is nothing bad that can happen. It's perfectly okay to try running code. If it produces an error, that's one of the ways to learn about programming. The error we got here, what's called a syntax error. That means that what we tried to evaluate is not actually a part of the Python language. Like English, Python has a grammar that defines what strings are in a language. In English, we can make lots of sentences that are not completely grammatical and people still understand them. But there is some underlying grammar behind the language. Those of you who are native language speakers might have learned rules like this in what was once called grammar school. Those of you who learned English as a second language or as a third language like me probably learned rules like this when you were learning English. So English has a rule that says you can make a sentence by combining a subject with a verb followed by an object. Almost every language has a rule like that. The order of the subject and the verb and the object might be different, but there is a way to combine those three things from a sentence. The subject could be a noun, the object could be also a noun, and then each of these parts of the speech, well, we have a lot of things they could be. So a verb could be a word like learn. The verb could also be a word like read. A noun could be the word you, and a noun could be the word Python. And a noun could be the word pizza. The actual English grammar is, of course, much larger and more complex than this. But we can still think of it as having rules like this that allow us to form sentences from the parts of speech that we know, from the words that make those parts of speech. The way we write in grammar here is called the Backus-Naur form, and it was invented by John Backus. So John Backus was a lead designer of the Fortran programming language back in 1950s at IBM. This was one of the first widely used programming languages, and the way they described the Fortran language was with lots of examples and text explaining what they meant. What you see in the background is a short form of the actual manual of the first version of Fortran. This works okay. Many programmers were able to understand it and guess correctly what it meant, but was not really precise enough, and it came time to design a later language, which was the language called Algol. It became clear that this informal way of describing languages wasn't precise enough, and John Backus invented the notation that we're using here to describe languages. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.